Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheimer. Today, we're closing out our reporting on National Child Abuse Prevention Month by focusing on a wonderful organization that has been meeting the needs of abused, neglected, and at-risk children for almost 65 years, with special guest Sara O'Meara, co-founder and CEO and chairman of Child Help, and Yvonne Fedderson, co-founder, president, and vice chairman of Child Help. And thank you both for joining us. I have to say, I'm starstruck and so honored that you would spend time with us to really expose the great work you've been doing for so many children. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark. You've been in this business a long, long time, so we feel just as starstruck.
Well, that's a first for me. So I'm going to set you up. We're going to go to you, Sara. But just to set this up, you founded the organization, and it had antecedents in 1959, which happens to be the year I was born. So a very good.
Thank goodness.
and you've impacted the lives of over 11 million children and counting. 11 million children, and you have treatment operations and intervention operations in California, Virginia, Tennessee, Arizona. I'm giving it short shrift because there's so much you can say better than I can, Sara and Yvonne. Could you talk a little bit about how you go from the Ozzie and Harriet show to saving 11 million plus children? Sara, you want to take it away?
Sure. We had no idea when we were chosen to go on a goodwill type tour to represent America, actually, and entertain our troops. Yvonne and I were selected out of 500 applicants because everyone wanted to go on that particular tour because they had GS-16 rating, which meant they went as a general. And we had done a lot of USO shows, and we certainly didn't travel like that. The interesting part was that Yvonne and I were the two chosen because we went on different days at different times, and they did not know that we knew each other. So that's kind of part of the divine plan in our thinking, due to the fact of how it all turned out. She was Ricky's girlfriend on the show, and I was David's. Now, a lot of people that will be watching this have no idea what Ozzie and Harriet show was, but it was a family show. It was very popular at that time.
It was really one of the dominant programs of that time in American popular culture, wasn't it?
It definitely was.
Too.
Yes, they were a great family to work for. We ended up in Tokyo, Japan as one of the places. We went to Korea and Okinawa and other places. But when we hit Japan, we also hit the typhoon season. And it was the coldest winter that ever had on record, the worst typhoon. They asked us not to leave our hotel, but being young and frivolous, really, we were bored in the hotel room. So we snuck out the basement of our hotel, our military hotel, to just walk the streets and get some fresh air and see the devastation that occurred from the typhoon. In so doing, we ran across 11 little children huddled together. Their ages were from 2 to 10 years old. And they had no shoes on, no jackets. They were shivering. They were huddled together with each other. And we rushed up to them asking where they belonged. The only thing that we understood, because we didn't speak Japanese nor they English, is no mama-san, no papa-san. So we thought these poor children are orphaned. And so we snuck them back into our hotel room up through the basement and gave them a hot bath, ordered food for them, and then told the colonel who was assigned for our tour, traveled with us, that we had these children in our room, whereupon he nearly had a fit. He said, you have to get rid of them immediately. And so we said, no, we're not going to do that. If you would help us by giving us a list of orphanages, we will try to place them. So we did that, and we put the children in a cab, which was a base cab, and the man spoke English and Japanese. He was a Japanese driver, so he could interface with the orphanages to find out if they had room for the children. It was always the same. They couldn't take them. And by nightfall, we were desperate, and we realized they had to come back to the hotel and spend the night with us because nobody could take them. And whereupon that's what happened. And then the following day, the driver met us, and we started our search again. And when we came up to a particular orphanage, the children began to cry in unison. We didn't know why. It was because they had been turned out of that particular orphanage. And the reason why is they wanted to make room for the full-blooded Japanese children, because these were half American, half Japanese. So the discrimination was so great that the mothers that were impregnated by our servicemen had no place to put them. They just left them on the street. And then they did go into an orphanage, and that was it. And then they had turned them out. So it infuriated us to think that there would be any discriminations like that. So it gave us the fortitude to reach the colonel again and told him we had to find a place for these children, that they were ours and we were not going to leave them. Whereupon that he did introduce us to the director of Tokyo Gospel Missions, who happened to be half American himself. He had great empathy for the problem. And the long story is, we found a woman that would take care of them in a little hut. There was no front door, no window panes out on her, but she had a heart of gold. We told her that we would take care of these children if she would take them in. She trusted us. We said we'd be back the next day. We had a show to do that night. We came back the next day. And when we did, there were other children left on our doorstep saying for the orphanage of mixed blood. Before we left Japan, we had over 100 children entrusted in our care. And if we didn't take care of them, they had nobody else, because the government said our government, the United States, they said they're not ours. Japan said they're not ours. So these children were really known as throwaways, and they did not have a home. That started our mission. And we came back to the United States, incorporated, got our friends who then, people on your program may not know these people either, but Connie Stevens and Debbie Reynolds and the Bing Crosby twins. And that was our group. That was our friends. They got together to put on shows. We raised enough money that eventually through the years, we had 4 orphanages for the half American child. Now, they were growing up all this time, and then the Vietnam War happened, and Congress asked us to come there to be saluted. We didn't even know Congress knew that we were doing this. We thought that was wonderful. And on the plane, Yvonne said to me, "You don't think they're going to ask us to go into Vietnam, do you?" I said, "Oh, no," because by then we were married and had our children. And so we thought that our work had really been done. And so we spent the whole plane ride talking about how we would write a very nice no. And when we went into Congress, there sat the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and he began talking to us after our award, how pitiful it was for the half American children in Vietnam, and that he would help us if we would consider doing exactly what we did in Japan. So Yvonne and I didn't even look at each other, and we said, we'd love to. We got back on the plane and said, what in the world have we done? But then we went back and got help and ended up building 5 orphanages, a hospital, and a school in Vietnam. We thought that was going great because General Walt was the one that worked with us, and they gave us a lot of support from the military. But what happened is General Walt told us, we're going to have to pull out of Vietnam, and we're going to have to leave. Do not send any more money over. We couldn't sleep at night thinking about that. We called Congress the next morning, and we said, listen, you got us into this, and we're not going to leave those children there. You have to help us. And they did, and getting airplanes, we got the children out, and that was the Operation Baby Lift. And the Baby Lift brought over thousands of children that were adopted when they came to our shore. Now, we really thought by then that our mission had been completed, but we were giving a keynote keynote address where the Reagans were on the dais with us. And as we finished our speech and came back, Nancy Reagan stuck out her arms to stop us and say, you two are just the two to do it. And we said, do what? And she said, we want you to tackle child abuse. It's the best kept secret in America. No one believes it, and the laws protect the perpetrator. So we said, oh, we've never heard of that. We don't see anything in the paper about that. We'd have to do a feasibility study to do anything like that. And so Ronnie turned around and said, I think we know where we can get that, don't you? And the next day he had a check on our doorstep himself, that the Reagans wrote the first check for us to do a feasibility study. And the rest is history about how child help started, because we've realized that nobody really wanted to bring it up because the laws did protect the perpetrator, and that we'd have to begin by changing laws, which we did. And then we had to create programs that could be on a national television network so that people could know what to do about it, a solution. So that was the beginning of child help.
You've touched on. Go ahead.
I'd like to mention the fact that we also started volunteers chapters, because we are the founders, of course, but we've done it with a lot of help. And that's our volunteers, I think, are the best of any organization anywhere. They've been right by our side, and they do events all the time. They do all the special things for our children. We're so proud of each and every one of them, and we really thank them and thank all the stars that have helped us throughout the years. I mean, we have fabulous people behind us and help us, and we just love them all and appreciate all of the help that other people have also given us.
Yes, and Kathy Lee Gifford, is head of our prevention program, Speak Up, Be Safe in our schools. And she has championed that. And we have to tell you that she has been with us over 40 years, as have Cheryl Ladd and a lot of people. So we like to give them a shout out because they do that out of the goodness of their heart. We don't pay them anything.
In fact, Jen Lilly is also one of our ambassadors, and she's adopted 2 of our children, and they're so happy and they're doing so well.
The thing that strikes me is that each person can provide some support as a volunteer. If you're prominent, then you can use your name to attract more attention. If you have wealth, you can write a check. These kinds of contributions together form a network. It's like different pieces in a puzzle to create this beautiful, complete picture. But it isn't about you. It isn't about the Reagans. It isn't about Kathy Lee Gifford. It isn't about the volunteer. It's about the children, right? So everybody's coming together around one person times 11 million. With time, it becomes 11 million.
Exactly.
One of the things that really strikes me listening to your story is that you touch on a lot of themes. You touch on rejection, society's rejection of kids. You touch on racism, which exists in every country and amongst all of us.
We're all God's children.
You also touch upon the gender sensibilities of male generals basically telling you that you can't do things. And then you, as young women, even unto today, as older women, saying, oh yes, we can do that. And then pulling it together, right? Pulling it all together. You touch on the issue of making the impossible possible, just in order to take care of each other. That's something we should really think about every day, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what life is about. You cannot be happy unless you do something for someone else. It's impossible.
There's always something they can do, whatever age you are.
Service for others is almost like the key to life, because that's what is expected of us and what God wants us to do.
So,
go ahead, I was just going to mention, we have a young lady. She was 9 years old when she came with us, and she is one of our ambassadors now. And she sings, and she goes to the schools, and she does a show for the children. And then she tells them about our hotline, and she talks to them. And because of her age, she's now 16, but it's wonderful what she's doing. In fact, she has reached thousands of children, 25,000 students she has.
In 3 months.
In 3 months.
Wow.
And she's doing a wonderful job. We're so proud of her. So it doesn't matter the age, you can always find something that you can do. But she's meant so much to the young children and giving them the hotline. And she encourages them that to speak up and be safe and call the hotline if it's necessary, or for them or for anyone that they know that's being abused. She's doing a fabulous job.
Can we talk a little bit about the questions of faith, values? It seems that sometimes this country, we're dividing ourselves along issues of religion or race or gender or orientation or all these different things. When really, when it comes to children and serving children, does it really matter whether it comes from that heartfelt service comes from a Christian or a Muslim or some other religious tradition? Does it really matter whether it's a secular organization or a religious organization? How do you feel about this idea of service in ways that don't divide us as opposed in ways that do?
Well, I think it only brings us all together more.
It should.
Because I think everyone in every culture, every religion cares about their children. If they don't know an answer to life. They really don't know God, because that's what everybody.
You care about other people's children. I guess that's the key, isn't it?
Oh, God's children.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. We care a lot about the children that have nobody to care for them. That's why they are in the situation they're in. It's very interesting to see what it does for your soul growth to help these children.
Right.
In fact, Yvonne, relating to the volunteers, we've given them an opportunity really to give back, and therefore it enhances their soul because they're thinking about some other person's children that don't have what their own children have.
And
so
sometimes they say it's changed their life for the better.
Yes, it's their mission too. We started it, but it's become the volunteers' mission as well. We have people that have been with us for 50 years.
So those who serve shall be served, right?
Exactly.
In terms of the hidden scourge of child abuse and neglect, hidden because people don't talk about it, they feel awkward about it, and because it is so difficult sometimes to go through that process of resolving it. A lot of abuse comes from families and from friends, people who are within the circle of that child. Talk a little bit about how you see the issues of abuse and neglect in this country, and how we can systemically not only investigate the abuse once it happens, but also prevent abuse from happening in the first place. What do you think the sources of abuse are? Because nobody wants to grow up to be a child abuser.
Well, for one thing, they don't grow up wanting to be. However, if you are abused, the chances are, and you have not received help like you should, the chances are you're going to grow up and abuse your own children. That is a fact, because that's what they know, and that's all they know on how to treat a child.
So in their minds, they're thinking they're doing the right thing. They're modeling behavior that they experienced, and I'm okay.
Exactly. That happens sometimes, but you're asking what really, what is the motivation, or why does that happen? I think in today's world, we are accepting so many things that are not of high morals. And that when we see so much abuse due to drugs and alcohol, and we see the also because of the violence that's on television and the copycats on that, we have noticed that the extent of the abuse and the horrible things that happen to children are worse now than we have ever seen. And I think that it's yes, it's such violence on our television programs. Children grow up to accept, they are desensitized about things that really are correct, that you were brought up, I was brought up to know and to believe in. They're not taught those things, nor do they think they're important. But moreover, they're not corrected when things happen, and therefore the government letting the children, the adults that don't belong on the streets out to just murder other people, they know there are no consequences. And so I think, frankly, that's why child abuse is galloping right now due to that fact. And then you have different modalities in different states that are one of our greatest heartaches right now. And what we're going through, Mark, is in California. California has made new laws that they want to get rid of residential treatment facilities. Well, every child that we've had, we have a one in California that's been open 45 years. Every child we've had going through that program from the get-go are failed foster placements or group homes. So they try them first. We've had children that have been in 30 different foster homes before we receive them. Now, in California, because of the new laws to get rid of that, their thinking is, oh, well, a foster home is better. Of course it is if it works. But these children are so mentally disabled after their abuse. They need therapy, structure. They need more than an average family of any kind can give them. And so it's a rejection upon rejection upon rejection because they don't make it in different foster homes. There had been over 60 closures of residential care in 1 year in California. And so
we've done quite a bit of work for organizations that provide housing solutions for young people. And if you look at, as you say, as you look at the number of youth that are consumers of those services, they are preponderantly kids who have aged out of foster care and who have had that type of experience.
And we're not against foster homes or group homes because we
have networks of them.
Well, what you're saying is that there are a number of different approaches, and trying to be prescriptive about what approach you may not use might have unintended consequences, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, that's the thing. We're all trying to come from a good place, but sometimes we don't pay attention to the data. And because we don't pay attention to the data, we reach conclusions based in, I don't know, personal beliefs, what we were taught in the past, maybe our political affiliations. How do you actually manage data to inform the work that you undertake and where you invest your scarce resources? You collect information on what works?
We do, and then we try things ourselves for the first time that it's ever been tried. And
so you experiment.
We experiment, but often they work and then become the modality that everyone uses, like our advocacy center. We were the first ones in the entire United States that had everything under one roof. We had the hospital for the examinations. We had the police that bring them in. We have the hospital unit that deals with the children. We have therapists there. So when we tried to do that for the very first time ever in Arizona, I will tell you that people said it wouldn't work. They hesitated to work together. They didn't want to come together. So what we had to do was pay for them to come. In other words, we paid the lease, we paid the money, we paid for everything if they would come. Well, of course, the government liked that because it took that off their payroll. And then once they did that, they all looked at each other and said, my gosh, this works. What they used to do is to have maybe cases that would last weeks and weeks and weeks. And in 4 hours, we get everything done. It's all, from one place to the other, and they all work together. And now that's all they do is that for advocacy centers. That's the best practice. So
what year was that when you first did those experiments, Yvonne?
When was that?
That was about 1928 years ago, something like
1998.
1998. It's very interesting because we work with all sorts of different organizations in all sorts of different states. and you can actually see the intelligence disseminating, in other words, circling out from where it emanates and sort of infecting others with these ideas. And then they make the ideas their own, and then they adjust their organizations accordingly.
Yes.
In terms of where you wish the organization to evolve toward, are you going to remain solely focused on abuse and neglect and those kinds of issues? Or how do you see your mission evolving? Because you started off with orphaned kids in Japan. You then go to Vietnam. Now you're dealing with abuse and neglect. I have your website up here, which is quite impressive. Where do you see this organization heading over the next years?
Well, our culmination, let us say our swan song that we would like, we have plans to build a global city, and that would take care of children from birth to emancipation. And we would have different neighborhoods of foster care, group homes, a village, a residential treatment facility, which is like intensive care at the hospital, really. And then we would have on-ground schools, which we do now. And then when they age out, we have already developed a friendship and partnership with a university, Grand Canyon University, where they are going to make it a mandatory that each one of their students will go through the different areas that they're in, whether they're a therapist or in maintenance or hospitality, because we're having a hotel on the premises. Everything will be like a city in its own, for one reason, for best practices, so that people can come and study and find out what works and what doesn't work, and new innovative ideas. And we would have it as a smart city where we would have hypotonic foods, and they would learn, the students, the people, the children there would learn all the latest technology and things of that nature. So we have some really big partners that are interested in this with us. And we have had many countries come to visit our advocacy centers and villages and the way in which we do certain things. Our hotline, we helped England in developing their first hotline. And so
Japan is coming around now.
Oh, yes, where we began now.
This is interesting.
Yeah, they're developing our prevention program in their schools for the first time. So it's full circle.
This is where?
In Japan, in Tokyo. Yeah.
That's so
Japan again.
So is this model community that you're putting together? Is this a physical? Does this have a physical location right now?
Yes, it will be in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. We've identified the land.
So basically, what you're doing is you're creating a model. In this country, we have a history, the Hershey experiment, right? There's an organization, Cranart, around Detroit, where Levittown, right? We created these model communities and tried to create these ideas of how citizens interact with each other. You're basically taking that tradition and you're giving it a child focus and basically trying to create a way in which the young people themselves become more empowered. Is that your idea?
Exactly. And we have animal program, equine therapy in our villages and so forth, and we find that children, as you know, and most of your audience would know, they identify with animals better than they do therapists sometimes. We've had situations where children saw their sister murdered in front of their eyes and they became mute. And this little boy was in foster homes, 25 of them before we got them, because the foster parents would say he has vocal cords, he can talk, and we can't get him to talk, so we want another child. So our speech therapist said, "Oh, we'll be able to help this child." Well, she couldn't. And then the equine therapist said, "Let me try something." And they told this little boy, they said, "Johnny, let me tell you something. we're giving you chocolate. That was one of our ponies. And if you don't take care of chocolate, nobody will. So you're going to have to come down every day and feed chocolate and curry him and so forth. Well, he lit up so great. He ran down to the barn early every morning. We happened to have been there at the time that he was coming to the barn. He put his arms around the pony and he said, "I love you." And it broke his silence. And from then on, he spoke. So we always tease the therapists that the animals can do more than they can. So we try to deal with the children in any way. We have wilderness programs. We have art therapy. We have all kinds of different sports activities to see where children can excel, because if they can excel even in one thing, it builds their self-esteem. And that's really the answer to unlock it, a child within, to find out something. There was a little girl that we had that she was half American, half Japanese. It so happened she was in our village in California, and she made the little gummy birds. And she won a prize with it, and we hung it in the administration building. She changed completely. She was failing in 3 grades. She skipped those 3 grades because everybody paid attention to her about the winning of that. So you have to find the key to each individual child as to what will unlock them, because they have a purpose in this life. God brings us in with a purpose. If they can identify with that, something that they really enjoy, that's the key to help them develop into a good adult.
And our volunteers again help, because they are special friends to the children. And many times they take them out and they get to go places that they'll never be otherwise. And our volunteers are so good to show them the love and that they really care about them, and makes the child feel so good. And then they share with them, their birthdays. They always give them a birthday party, and their holidays. They treat them special. We do something special for the children, and they take them out. They're just fabulous to help their children's self-esteem, help them to become the person that God wanted them to be.
One of the things that I will take away from this conversation is that anytime I become self-satisfied that I have the answer, knowing that there's an individual answer for an individual child, and it might be different than my answer, but being able to connect with their answer and meet their need is so informative to us, informative to our lives. You've been so creative, and even in expressing what you have done and the magic that you and your people work. And I know you have a huge team. So let's, as we close, could you talk a little bit about how you build this team and how you put these people together, these ingredients to a solution, and sort of this energy that you exude, and allow others to be part of that whole complex. How do you get people together?
Well, I think that your leadership at the top really creates the culture that you want the others to follow. And so what we try to do is not only find someone that has a skill, but moreover has a positive attitude, that have the inward qualities you want. And frankly, spirituality, we look for that. If people have a love of God and want to follow the right pathway, then everything else kind of follows. And so, yes, you want to make sure that their skill set is equal to the job, and we do that. But a lot of things that are much more important almost than that is attitude, is the positiveness. You can have someone that's negative and be the smartest people in the world and even successful at times. But it creates, as you talk about, the energy that is a down energy. You know,
Positive energy.
we see so much terror, disappointment in the way people treat their children. And we need people around those children that truly care about them and love them, and that can be an example to them. So that's how we try to select the people. Do we make mistakes? Of course we do. And there are times that we have, misjudged, but that's what we strive to do.
So you're talking about the combination of competence, values, positivity,
That's right.
and commitment, right? And that can be expressed. That can be expressed in a lot of different ways, right? A lot of different people have a lot of different styles, but positivity can be recognized, competence can be recognized, attitude can be recognized. That's basically what you're saying. Let's look at each other and have a feeling for each other. And yes,
Right.
we'll make mistakes, right, periodically.
And learn to love each other and understand each other, not always fighting. We're dividing too much now. We have to be together and work together.
And listening to other points of view. Do you sometimes have disagreements and you have to be tolerant of the fact that you're not necessarily going to convince your counterpart, Sara or Yvonne? Do you sometimes look at each other and just, you're not going to convince each other?
So we don't argue.
We're very fortunate. In fact, we've had people say the real miracle is that we've been friends for so long, and that we now have ended up, our husbands have passed away and we now live together. And it's very convenient because we can continue our work and not miss a beat since we live together. But it's because, as Yvonne said, we do think alike. So it's not that we combat each other. Mm-hmm. And if one of us has an idea, we'll pursue it and see if that works, because, we care about each other too. And so we fortunately are quite a bit alike about the things that we want and the things that we would like to achieve for the children.
Yvonne, would you like to have the last word to take us out?
Well, if anyone is listening to this program, and if they are being abused, or if they know anyone that's being abused, please call our hotline, 1-800-4-A-CHILD. It's very important that you get help, either for yourself or for your loved ones or neighbors. You can save a life. So please call and see what you can do about the abuse and what you can do to help.
We will do our best to get the word out.
Thank you.
Fedderson, co-founder, president, and vice chairperson at Child Help, and Sara O'Meara, co-founder, CEO, and chairman of Child Help. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Please thank your people, your board members, your volunteers, and your clients who are part of the solution. It's just been an honor, a real honor to be instructed by you and to learn from you.
Well, thank you.
God bless you.
For having us.